Why is Yellow Bastard yellow? Why does his blood smell so awfully? And what was done to his body during the restoration process? This video answers these and other interesting questions related to Sin City. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and support the video with your activity. This means a lot for me. Sin City is a place the soul of which has long been plunged into darkness. A city that lives for the night and pushes people to act the most disgusting way. Sin City always needs a winner, and it doesn't care whether it's an honest cop or a sadistic maniac tormenting innocent victims. Yes, John Hartigan, who had just 1 hour left until retirement on that cursed night, couldn't think about the past 30 years of service filled with glory, triumph, blood, and tears. He couldn't think about a fat steak waiting for him at home that his wife cooked with love. All his thoughts were occupied with one thing. Somewhere out there is young, defenseless Nancy Callahan in the hands of the maniac, Rourke Jr. And the scariest thing for Hartigan right now is being late. Yes, messing with the Rourkes is a losing game from the start. But an old man's life for a girl's life is an equal exchange. And Hartigan has always been one of those who clearly understood one thing. Those bastards cranking the meat grinder called Sin City will sooner or later feel what it's like to be the meat. And this is what Hartigan, coming just in time, battling heart issues, makes Rourke Jr. go through. He shoots off his left ear, right hand, and his main weapon, his genitals, just moments before his traitorous partner Bob shoots him in the back several times, not allowing Hartigan to finish what he started. I think you remember what happened next. Rourke Sr. intends to turn Hartigan's life into hell and slap on him false charges in a fabricated case of violence against Nancy Callahan. That is why he needs Hartigan alive. And at Rourke Sr.'s behest, he receives first-class medical care. There is one important detail in these scenes. The level of medical equipment in Hartigan's room stands out significantly from everything we see in Sin City, as if this is something advanced for Sin City. In fact, it is true. This means that if Rourke provided such medical equipment for Hartigan, then the level of medical care for his son, whom Hartigan crippled, must be simply extraordinary. And that's also true. But first things first, 8 years later, Hartigan wakes up once again on the cursed floor of a cursed cage. But this time he was about to awaken to a horrific stench, like a piece of beef that had been left in the backseat of a pickup truck for several weeks in the summer heat. A stench emanating from the man sitting next to him, who resembled a cold-blooded reptile by his posture and coat, and from certain angles he even resembled an extraterrestrial humanoid. But neither reptiles nor humanoids stink like that. This is how Yellow Bastard smells. Yes, looking at this yellow skin, bald head, deformed ears and nose, Hartigan still didn't recognize Rourke Jr. and this man, who, thanks to Hartigan, had completed his transformation into a full-fledged freak in every sense. This is how Rourke Jr.'s father will describe him. Perhaps Hartigan would have recognized Rourke Jr., but over the past 8 years he had become much better at shooting and much better at fighting. Yes, the Rourkes tricked Hartigan into leading them to the one who had been sending him letters every week for 8 years. This person turns out to be grown-up Nancy Callahan. It was too late when Hartigan realized this. During the chase, Hartigan manages to shoot Yellow Bastard, who proves to be quite resilient despite significant blood loss. And here, Hartigan once again experiences Yellow Bastard's awful smell. And we understand that the main source of the smell in Yellow's body is his blood itself. The reason for that will become more clear later. Well, shortly after, Yellow catches Hartigan off guard once again with a strong blow, this time in a motel. In this part of the film, Yellow reveals to Hartigan that he is Rourke Jr., and he does whatever he wants whenever he wants. Moreover, his father spent a fortune hiring the best specialists in the world to regrow, yes, regrow, the parts of his body that Hartigan shot off. It's worth mentioning that both in the comic, source material, and in the film, Bastard specifically mentions that his new body parts were grown, referring specifically to his genitals. It is not directly stated whether his hand and ear were also grown. However, based on what we'll discuss next, they were also grown. Moreover, all these parts were not grown in a test tube to then be sewn on to Rourke Jr. They were all grown directly on Jr. himself. Two things indicate this. First, if we refer to the comic, Jr. specifies that his father, Senator Rourke, hired gene therapy experts for his restoration. Rourke Jr. calls them genetic wizards. This helps us understand that innovative genetic advancements played a key role in his restoration. Of course, this came with side effects. By the way, there's a view's theory that Manute's artificial eye, which Marv gave him, is not so artificial after all, but rather alive, grown using the same genetic technology as Rourke Jr.'s new body parts. Additionally, the deformation of his ears and nose supports the idea that the new body parts were grown directly on Jr. These parts continued to grow until new ones were formed to replace those that had been shot off earlier. This is one of the main side effects of Rourke Jr.'s restoration, which significantly affected his appearance. After all, ears and nose grow throughout a person's life, and in Rourke Jr.'s case, they grow several times faster due to the influence of gene therapy aimed at restoring individual body parts. But of course, the side effects of tissue affected not just his ears and nose. His deformed skull is also quite noticeable. For bioengineering specialists, the main task was not to initiate the growth of the body parts that were shot off, but rather to block the growth of other tissues. They managed to do this to some extent. Yes, to some extent. For this, they had to locally kill, using chemical agents, the cells of the tissues, the unwanted growth of which they needed to slow down. And based on what we'll discuss further, they did this right up until his death. This is exactly the cause of yellow bastard blood's awful smell. It is the smell of decay, of all the dead cells, the growth of which needed to be prevented. This also is a possible explanation for yellow bastard's yellowness. However, regarding his yellowness, I see two viable theories. The first, most obvious one, is an excess bilirubin pigment in his blood. This is what causes an illness known as jaundice. A common cause of elevated bilirubin levels in the blood is the rapid breakdown of erythrocytes. This can be caused by chemical therapy, which in Rourke Jr.'s case was aimed at preventing side effects from restoration. Of course, the therapy with chemicals and genetic changes also led to side effects such as localized fat deposits and baldness. However, the jaundice option doesn't quite fit Rourke Jr., as in this case, yellow tint typically affects not only the skin, sometimes even the blood, but also the sclera of the eyes, which Jr. does not have. I think a more realistic option is what's known as false jaundice, when yellowness can be caused by an increased level of carotene pigment. According to open sources, it can be caused not only by consuming certain foods, but also by using specific medications. For example, those having anti-infective action, and Rourke Jr. requires such medication on a regular basis due to the constant decay processes in his body. And I believe this is the reason why Yellow Bastard is yellow. For sure, all conclusions regarding the physiology of the yellow bastard are merely my subjective opinion, but why not? And yes, it's hard to even call this all semi-scientific or semi-medical. With such regular processes of decay in his body, Rourke Jr. simply could not live. But don't forget that according to the author's design, Sin City is a place where supernatural beings exist, and I can for sure tell you about them in other videos. But one way or another, the story of Sin City is not a story of one endless night. It is a storytelling that coming to this city with your eyes wide open, you would never be able to leave it again. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel and support this video with your activity. This means a lot to me.